welcome to Cosmic Connections podcast. We are welcoming you to sit down, have a conversation with us. We're going to talk about the NORWAC Astrology Conference. I'm Starlene, and with Christopher and Fei Cochrane. Let me introduce them before we get to NORWAC, though. The NORWAC Conference is the Northwestern Astrological Conference, and it is in Washington State, I believe. And that will be fun to talk about and explore what their experience was like and other things that we're doing. But before we get into that, I wanted to welcome you, Fei, to the podcast. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Fei is a very pivotal person in the astrological community. She's been doing astrology things and working in the astrological community for decades, and she is the CEO of Cosmic Pattersn and the president of Avalon School of Astrology. So Fei has been around for a long time, and we're really happy to have her here. And Christopher, of course, my co-host here, is working on some really interesting and wonderful things to enhance and grow astrology as we know it. He's working on a book on the vibrations of 360 vibrations and their meanings. And so thank you guys for joining us here. So how are you guys doing today?
I'm very good.
Good.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's nice to be back too, and it's great to have you on, Fei. So you have been a busy bee, but like you're always a busy bee. I'm excited to hear what you guys' experience was at NORWAC, because I haven't been there, living in the Southeast. It's like the other side of the country for me. But I'm excited to hear about your experience and what your experience was, Christopher, that going there for the first time. I know you've been there multiple times, Fei.
Right. Yeah. We just came back from the conference, from the NORWAC conference. I'm always there, vendors there. I love the Nalbadians family. There's like my brother and sister that I'm visiting. And mingle with so many new people, like new students. There's so many new students there. And this time I did a lecture on solar return used in vibrational astrology. I really had a great receptions, feedback, and I had so many people in my room and no one left, and they really loved it. They're very interested in vibrational astrology. And Christopher met me there with my two teammates, and we really had a wonderful time. And because of my lectures, a lot of people came to our booth getting vibrational astrology reading. And I applied a lot of the research that I did on vibrational astrology charts, and they were so accurate. And Christopher and I are working on this really advanced VA book that is the vibrational astrology charts 1 to 360. And upon talking to these people, Christopher applied all of these analysis and interpretations that he put together through research, and including mine. And I mean, it was mind-boggling. It was mind-boggling how accurate it is. And I'll take it away, Chris, and experience with them. It's my first time with Chris there. It was wonderful. It was fun, exciting.
Yeah. So this was my first time to NORWAC. Being from, when Fei said she was going to do that, I'm like, okay, I can go help, because that's going back home for me, since that's the area I'm from. And I was able to visit with friends that I hadn't seen in 20 plus years. So people I grew up with when I was little.
Is it in Washington? Was I right? Or is it in Oregon? I didn't remember.
No, it's in Washington. It's right.
It is Washington.
So it's right in between Seattle and Tacoma. So SeaTac is where the airport is, and it's in Tukwila. But SeaTac is right between the end. So the south part of Seattle and the north part of Tacoma is SeaTac. You're right there. Okay. So, and I'm from Olympia, which was about not even 60 miles. It was just less than an hour drive down south to go to Olympia, which is the state capital. So it's an
Awesome.
area that's been there a long time. That mall that's there has been there a long time.
Yeah.
But it's a little busier now, like the
Mhm.
area. I expected to experience a lot of nostalgia going back, but not so much.
No.
The area was very run down from
Okay.
when I remember it. So from me being there 24 years ago, um, it was Microsoft land. It was up and coming. Everything was new, and there hasn't been a lot of improvement since then. So the highway was horrible. SeaTac Airport was an embarrassment, horrible.
Wow.
But the conference, I will say this: a lot of very nice people. So met a lot of new people. It's really nice to be amongst a lot of astrologers, because literally everywhere you turn, you're hearing people talk about astrology. So
Yeah.
that's a little unusual. Okay. I will say that. Like, you're listening to this, like you can overhear all these conversations and they're all astrology.
Yes.
That pretty much never happens outside of an astrology conference. Okay.
Yes.
Um,
It's great though, because people
yes.
will either listen to what you have to say if you're talking about something different than they know, or you're around your people that accept and understand that we're all.
Absolutely. You're
Yeah, I love
around the
astrology
people
conferences.
that speak a language that very few people speak. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's really nice. And again, being raised in foreign countries, you become very familiar with that, of
Yes.
Yeah.
when you can be around people that speak your language.
Yeah.
All right. So
Mhm.
I'm used to being in situations where you're not understanding what anybody's doing. You have to kind of figure it out. But it's not just where you can easily hear and grasp all the meaning of what they're saying. So put that, let alone English, as an issue. Now you put the
Yeah.
astrological phrasing, and there's just very few people that speak that language. And so to be at a place where literally hundreds of people are speaking that language is kind of cool. That's definitely a cool thing that you'll never get online. Like, it's not something you can experience online,
Yeah.
because you
No. No.
can't overhear online.
No.
It's a direct talk. So
Right.
at the conference, you're getting just so many conversations that you're hearing, and all about, this aspect or that aspect, or what's happening in this sign, and just, again, astrological terminology. So that's really cool. That's really cool. The hotel was pretty nice. Where the conference was, the rooms were really large and nice. Fei had her table set up there with all the other ones, and I ended up visiting most of the tables. Everybody was really, quite kind, and it is a community. You can tell the people that have been there a long time that they sort of have come back several times, because they all know each other and are
Yeah.
talking, and
Yeah.
it's really nice that way. Very pleasant. I think, again, all the sessions were fairly clearly marked. It was really easy to get to. There was a lot of people that were struggling as to choosing what they wanted to go to. Okay, that was a thing. They're trying to pick, like, oh, I want to hear that, but I also want to hear, like, so that was a little bit of a struggle. But I know that people had access to the recordings and everything as well. So that's nice. But so that was really good. Getting there, so one of the sessions that I went to, which I think was one of the main, I think it was the first evening there, was Frank Clifford. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So from England. I think he's from England, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Very good speaker, very witty, great sense of humor. And he was speaking on Uranus, and I can't remember. Do you remember the title of his talk, Fei? Do you remember what the title? I don't remember the title of his talk, but it was really good. It was not your sort of cookie cutter kind of explanation on something. He went into a lot more detail. He went into kind of hitting on a lot of the duality that exists right now, that sort of this or that, and that we as astrologers, that can't be what we do. That, again, we understand that there's a lot of nuance to things, and it's not just this camp or that camp. That there's different ways of looking at things and realizing that, people are a lot more complex. And so that's,
well, I mean, even if you think about like medicine is like that too. Sometimes you go to a natural doctor, sometimes you go to an allopathic doctor, sometimes you go to somewhere in between that doctor, So you want to, you want to have the whole perspective. So that's why I look at astrology. There's different types of astrology, resonate with different people, and also, and also have different wisdom to share too.
Yes. So I think one of the things, or one of the thoughts, that so his was, up till that point, that was like my favorite talk, was his talk from the ones that I'd heard. Now I would say that the talks I had been to, some were talks I was familiar with, so I was familiar with the subject matter quite well. And so there was the presentation style, which like a Demetra, I was fairly familiar with the subject matter, but her presentation is really good. She's a very good speaker. She has a sort of an elegance to her, which is really nice, and she's easy to follow. So I was quite familiar with the topic, so it's not going to hit me the same way. I like to be challenged. Okay, so smack me with something, like I like to be hit. That's what I like. Say something that I'm either going to completely disagree with or agree with, whatever, but challenge me in some way. All right, but you're not going to get that in every talk, because it's not the intention of every talk. So there was other talks there that I could see sprinklings that were good, but some of the speakers had some challenges being cohesive. Okay, so keeping it to a flow, and that's, again, that just comes with either experience or what you're trying to accomplish, what a person's trying to accomplish. Sometimes, like one of the talks, they were trying to cram a lot of information in a very short period of time, and they were struggling with that when they probably should have cut it back. And that's just a Virgo picky critique. Okay, so it's better to make 2 points clear than try to make 4 points and you don't get anything clear.
Thank you for saying that, because that's always good to hear.
Yeah.
When you're
you want to come away clear. Like, if you can only make 2, better to make 2 that people know what you said, and then they can investigate further, than to try to make 4 points and nobody's sure what you did.
Right.
Okay? I've been kind of paying attention to that particular thing when teaching my vibrational astrology classes, because I've been doing that for the last 4 weeks. We've had classes, and so we're beyond week 5 coming up, but I'm like, don't overload them. They're also learning. If I go crazy, I have to remind myself. So I'm trying to keep it at a pace, because I don't want to, some of the students are more knowledgeable than others, and that's a trick with the teacher, but that's where assessment comes in, and knowing where they're at. But definitely, I think if you give them something to do little and then build upon it, that is the most helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I did with my lecture. That is why it was very, very popular. I gave them the steps, and I gave them the examples. They were all taking notes like crazy. One of them said, I've got 8 pages of notes, because I was not reading my PowerPoints. I was giving them steps so that they have something to bring home to. And then towards the end, I used my chart. I said, look, I can really use your help to look for a place for my birthday, because I really need it. And so, okay, applying what I taught you, where should I go on my birthday? Every one of them got where I should go on my birthday. And then I did not accept any questions during my presentation, but I gave 15 minutes time at the end for them, so they can ask questions. And that's what they wanted. They want to ask questions. They want it slow, and be able to ask questions so that they can have content to bring him to.
Well, when you can get questions, that's a good sign.
Yes.
Because I would say there were certain sessions I was in that nobody had any questions because no one was sure what to even ask.
Oh.
Yeah. If
If
you're
you
that
overload
lost.
people too much-
Now, mind you, I will say this, that for me, listening to the talk, like the one that was scattered, there were some good things in there. But because it was so mixed with a lot of other stuff, it was like you weren't able to hone down on what you're saying.
Oh.
And so it was like, oh, that is very, very broad. Like, and people are, once you get people and they're lost.
Yeah.
Like, good luck on getting them back. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know where we are. I'm not sure what we're doing. I'm not sure what this. So that's a thing. It just is. It happens.
Yeah.
Now,
But you were able to get into those classes because I never get a chance to get in there because of so many people at my booth teaching them astrology, giving them free readings and everything so that they have something to go home with. So I'm so glad you're able to get in there. So
it was, it was good that way. Now, my favorite talk and the talk that I actually learned something, okay? So, which was Rick Levine. Now, Fei said, oh, you have to go hear him. You have to go hear him. And he was giving a talk on the patriarchy. Now, I can tell you right now, I was not looking forward to this talk. And not because of Rick, but because of I was like, I was expecting something different.
I told you, you're not going to miss Rick Levine. You have to go.
Yeah, she made me go. So, and there was actually another one of the speakers there who avoided it for the same reason I did. Okay. Because they're like, I just don't need that. Okay. Yeah. Like if you're just going to go all the talking points of bash the patriarchy, okay, as if society isn't doing that enough right now. All right. So that's what I was half expecting because I just was not as familiar with a lot of his work. Yeah. Now, that is not where he went. He did, but he didn't. He began a talk, which he has talked about before, but I think he went a little further in it in this particular talk.
You did not leave the room.
I did not. I was like, I did not leave. Nobody left the room. Now, mind you, there was not a lot of people in the room that time. So it was a smaller group compared to,
maybe a lot of people thought that.
I think a lot of people thought they knew what he was talking about, but did not know what he was talking about. So I would say this. He probably should have changed the name of the talk because he might have thought that would have drawn people in for the people that he really needed to talk that to. I will tell you that. But for some reason it didn't. Okay. So,
but it was my lecture than his. That's too bad. Okay.
Yeah, it was a fantastic talk. And so he does one on quantum astrology. So that's kind of where he comes from. And I wasn't sure how that was defined. And I kind of get a little bit more of a glimpse into how that's defined. And I'm not going to say that I can rehash his talk because I can't right now. But I can tell you what I got out of it. Okay. So don't think that he said this. I'm not going to say that he said this, but it's what triggered in my mind. Okay. So in general, he was dealing, though, with the point of astrology used to end at Saturn. Okay. So astrology ended at Saturn. That was the furthest thing. Now, when I deal with Saturn, you're dealing with a certain sense of limitation, as we know. Okay. So we want to say Saturn is cutting to the bone. In VA, we want to say Saturn's cutting to the bone to get to the truth. That's a nice version of Saturn. Okay. That is not the old version of Saturn. Okay. No. The benefic planet. This is not that. This is a modern sort of like getting to the actual research truth of how we view life today. Mm-hmm. All right. But astrology, remember, and this is one of his points, astrology is always through the eye of the astrologer and how he views life. That's a major point. Okay. And he tried to make that in his talk. As I think Frank also was making, that astrology is about the eye of the astrologer and how he sees life. Mm-hmm. Okay. So with a Saturn being the end of it and the last of the planets, it was a cap. Now, coming from a sort of Christian viewpoint, this is Saturn or Satan, the Satan being the ruler of the world. Okay? So if I take this analogy, take this as an analogy, Satan is the ruler of the world. But when Jesus came, he then threw that rulership off, as we even see in Greek mythology. Now, how do we do that? Well, what do we do it with? We go back to what Jesus is the son of. So in the Bible, it says, the heavens declare, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Now that word heavens is Uranus or Uranus. So Uranus is declaring Jesus as the son, okay, or as its son, okay? So this is an expansion beyond the limitation of Saturn or Satan. It goes into this new realm, all right? Literally, that was 2,000 years ago, and we're still dealing with that transition from Saturn being the limitation to now we're going above and beyond into the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto realm, into the deeper expansion. And so part of his talk is this whole idea of as man evolves, but astrology is evolving as above, so below, and not being limited by the understanding of Saturnian rule. All right. So it's important as an astrologer to not limit ourselves, but to go beyond. And so this was the theme of his talk, was this kind of idea. And he goes into different details, of which once he's saying it, it's like, oh, I completely believe this. Oh, this is good. Because it becomes a challenge to astrologers, because you'll get many that dictate the old rules. You must do it to the old rules. He would challenge you to say, but we are not the old people. Yeah. Okay. We are not that anymore. We have evolved as people. Yeah. Therefore, the astrology must also evolve as we see. Okay. So this was kind of some of his point. And so instead of going, he was saying for the patriarchy, where he did that is, so instead of going, okay, we have patriarchal rule, then we'll have matriarchal rule. He's like, no. We're moving into this non-binary. We're moving into this Uranus. What is Uranus? So Saturn constricts you to a patriarchy, matriarchy. All right. So if you, again, in the analogy which is I'm going to use, the biblical analogy, Satan's tree was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right and wrong, binary rule. The Jesus tree, the Uranus tree, is the tree of life. It's singular. It isn't binary. It just is. Okay. So it's not a matter of moving from the patriarchy to the matriarchy. It's moving away from the matriarchy-patriarchy system into a non-binary reality of Uranus, individuated. Now, this is my kind of thing now. So everything is binary in the sense of when you program, it's on and off, on and off, on and off, switches. Correct? That's the way the program language works. That's kind of the way our brain works. On and off, on and off, on and off. And in one sense, we are binary. Okay? Either the switch is on in us and off in us. That's the way it is. You can look at our vibrations. That's an on, that's an off, that's an on. The thing is, as individuals, we have millions, if not billions, of switches. Now tell me, who has the switches all switched exactly the same? Nobody.
Right.
Nobody has their switches all the same. And that's the point, that we can see the variations. Just because you have a Pisces switch, okay, but within Pisces, you have a lot of switches.
So a lot of aspects connecting to different charts that creates different vibrations. Yes, exactly.
Tons. So you are not, although everything is binary, yes, it's either on or off, that's true. But you as an individual are really not binary, because you're way beyond, you're not just this or that. You're many this or that's. Many this or that's. And you're the collection of all of those this or on and off, on and off, on and off. Okay? So this was, again, not that he used that illustration, but this is what I was getting as he's talking, is that, okay, yeah, we need to go beyond this, you're either on this team or that team, you're on this one or that. Like, we need to go beyond that and to realize that everyone's very unique, and their uniqueness is deep and many. It's very varied.
Right.
And it's not to say that it's not binary. It is, again, but we're not a switch that you have an on switch for Starlene and an off. So she's either this or that. No, she's got a million switches. That they're all
very complicated.
Yeah. As is,
but I mean,
everyone is complex. Right. And so so what he was dealing with was the concept of and he was dealing in quantum theory and different things like this, and the wave, and there's the wave, and what else was there? There was a couple of different things that deal in sort of the quantum realm that we're only beginning to scratch the surface of. And so he was trying to incorporate this into how we view astrology and how we understand it to be, instead of fighting over house systems, instead of fighting over this.
Exactly.
We need to move beyond and not recognize that, yes, the old system and the old way, that is true. It stops at Saturn. It does. He
ended up renaming or creating his own name of specific aspects, because one astrologer that he got into a discussion with will not accept these new aspects, like the Siski quadrat and other aspects that are not common.
Yes.
So
that's why when you deal with
advanced,
I think one of the exciting points for me was realizing as he was talking that VA really incorporates this whole concept.
Yes.
Completely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not based in a lot of the old rules. It's not that the old rules are gone, but it's not based in that. It's based in the relationship of the planets, is really what it's based in. And it's based in the relationship of not just the 7 planets, but all the planets, even including fixed stars. It's much more comprehensive in the idea that we are not limited to just simple relationships. Our relationships, as the 360 go through, are very complex.
Exactly.
They're way beyond the basic dynamics. They have a much richer complexity, showing the richer complexity of human beings today and their ability to express, because human beings have always had a certain complexity, but a limitation in expressing that. And now we're much freer and able to express our uniqueness, and more dynamics in life are able to be expressed now than they were in the past. So
not that we're ditching the old rules, it's still there. We are just advancing it into the modern world. It's there.
Yes. Well, and then you deal with, and he did deal with this. He brought up magic. He brought up different things, and the engagement of magic, which I'm like, oh, he's hitting all the points for me. So, which, as we know, in the magic, you do the old rules, but you follow them even more than a lot of like Hellenistic astrologers, because you're following the magic rules, which are even stricter. Okay. So if you think a lot of those rules for sort of Hellenistic astrology are hard, they're nothing compared to magic. Like, they're much harder in magic. But when you're doing that, you're following a different system, and you're following an ancient system for a different purpose. Magic isn't about trying to understand a person. It's about dealing in the physical world we live in, where with VA or modern sort of astrology, we're trying to understand the sort of energetic drives of a person.
The
what
psychology
drive they have.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is something I've been doing. I know that's not in NORWAC, but and I've been reading about it the last week or so. I was writing some articles about horary astrology, and I was reading some of the old books that I have, and then also applying VA techniques that I've learned to horary astrology. So I was writing some stuff, which I was doing because I've been doing that for myself. But it goes back to what you're saying. I think on some level, it's like almost marrying and understanding the two concepts and not meshing them together because they're different.
They're just linking.
they link together. They do.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, maybe we haven't really explored enough of, in my opinion,
Yes.
as I was like
No.
doing this stuff. And I'm like reading books from Lee Lehman. I'm reading books from, Astrological Magic. I mean, I was just, all these things that I can just help myself understand what I'm talking about and how I'm relating in the articles that I'm writing. So, it's interesting. And then, thinking about what I've learned and what I know as a VA astrologer and how it's different, but it's just like a progression of it. I love the horary stuff, that ancient stuff. And it was funny because I'm like looking at some videos online and all of this research I was doing. I'm looking at some videos online, and one of the comments under one of the videos said something about, well, modern astrologers make things more complicated with like 1, 12, 15 harmonic charts. And I'm like, no, I didn't respond because I thought that was funny, but I'm like, no, it's actually simpler, in my opinion. If you understand the harmonics or the vibrations, it's simpler, in my opinion, than all the rules that isn't. And I can say that because I know both of those systems well, but I mean, I think that's.
Yeah. Linking vibrational astrology to the systems like horary, the Hellenistic, the modern, linking vibrational astrology into it is actually makes it super accurate, and you can see the inner level of it, inner level of the old rules. Yes.
Yep. It brings about like, a continuation of it. It's not letting go of anything, but the old astrology. I mean, VA was built upon those systems at first, and grown into what it is now, but it's come from that. So that's, in some way, that's our history, our astrological history as a collective, but I mean, I think it's really cool. And I think that when you understand the vibrations, it just seems to get like, to me, it's like quicker. It's just easier to understand than, is this ruler in this house? And like, I understand that too, but if you're going to learn something, I think that modern part, if you're more progressive in your thought process, that might be what you look for. If you're more traditional, maybe the older stuff would be what you would look into. But, I think they both do meet in the middle somewhere.
I think that there's we can use the term modern or traditional, and that's fine. But I probably would use almost more of a term of materialism and, quote, spirituality is almost what you're dealing more with.
That makes sense. That's much more.
And I don't want to say it in the sense of, how do I? So I would say
be more spiritual.
Materialism. So materialism is very physical, very easily to track. Spirituality basically in general means the unseen. So one is what you did, the other is why you did it. Okay, so spirituality deals with why you did it. You can say psychological as well. It's spirituality and psychology kind of sort of have a merging together. So you have why you did something, but what you did. And so in a lot of what we would say the ancient way of astrology was looking for what you're going to do. All right. Which is very dictatorial. It basically says that you do not have a lot of free will. And what I mean by that is you don't, yay or nay, you don't choose. You're just going to go the path of least resistance, a very material way, very materialistic. And so in a world where survival is the main draw, like all you're trying to do is survive, materialism will win out 9 out of 10 times.
Yeah, because you got to eat.
In that way, it's always going to work. But I think underlying astrology is the motivational drive, is a spiritual drive for evolving, for human beings to evolve and change and grow. Okay. So again, when you're dealing with what your worldview is, to say your worldview doesn't affect your astrology, your worldview affects everything, but it definitely affects your astrology of what do you think the intent is? Okay. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you living life? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? Okay. So for me with VA, it's able to work in such a way because it's looking for the energetic push. It's not telling you what you're going to do.
Yes.
It's saying, if this is pushing you, and these are other factors that you have within your life, can we see where the manifestation might be? Yes. Okay. Taking all the varied factors in your life. Okay. But we're looking for what is the inner push? what is happening in a person's life that it will come like this. Now, again, that's not really how horary has been traditionally practiced. It's this
Right.
means this in this house and this mean, like, we have meanings to everything. It's much more black and white. And
Right.
what we're dealing
There's a
with,
specific rule. Yeah.
yes, you follow the rule and it's specific. And now, mind you, it's not always correct, because life as we know today is not always black and white. It just isn't.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean sometimes it isn't. It is. But I think for the more, how would I say, for the more aware person of energetic dynamics, and when I say awareness, what I mean is when you can language things, you can be more aware. If you don't have a word for it, it's almost impossible to be aware of it. All right. So if you don't have a word for it, you can't be aware of it. So in the old way, if you don't have an aspect like a sesquiquadrant, you can't be aware of it. If you don't have that word, you do not have the ability to be aware of it. Doesn't mean it isn't there, but you refuse to look at it or see it. So even the idea in vibrational astrology, if you don't have words to describe the 328th vibration, it will be meaningless to you and you cannot be aware of it.
Exactly. That is why what you're doing and what we're doing together, researching it and present it to the community, it will make it super powerful and people can understand what they are.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, or I wouldn't be doing this. But but
it's like, I'm not spending all my spare time doing this for nothing.
Oh my God! I wish it was just spare time.
It's a lot. I finished 64 and 65 now. I'm on 66.
Yeah, it's like it's a lot. So, but that's the concept, is when you're not, when you can put a word to it, you can see it. If you can't put a word to it, you can't see it. You know, you have no way to look at it. So, you know, if you really examine, how long has psychology been around? Not very long.
Yeah. And
so we have not had these terms in the human consciousness for very long.
Right.
Yeah. And so these are all new. These are new concepts, to think that, oh, you know what, in the time of the Romans, this is what they were doing. No, they were not. They were not, because they didn't have words for it. So they were not conscious of it. Okay.
Yeah, that is why those astrologers that are not using quincunx, sesquiquadrant, and all that stuff, not that they don't want to use it. They're not aware of it. That is the thing. So we have to give them awareness.
Yes. And, you know, the going back to that comment I said about the person saying, you know, that modern astrologers complicate it by putting vibrations, or harmonics is the word that comment was. It kind of made me chuckle to myself, and I thought about responding, but I was like, nah, you know, online people will think you're being condescending or something. And that was definitely not where I was coming from. But we're using, when we think about any kind of aspect pattern, if we're thinking about a grand trine in the natal chart, that's a 3-vibe chart. That's a 3-vibe chart or a 6-vibe chart. And people don't get it. They think that, you know, the harmonics is like something else. It's not. And I wanted to say that, but I also didn't, like I said, I didn't want to sound condescending, because I think that's the wrong place to come from. But I think that if we kind of get our head into, we're actually using vibrations already, whether or not we call them that, by doing aspects, and every astrologer does aspects.
Square is 90 degrees, and that is the 4th vibration.
4th vibration, right? And that's why 8-vibe is so important, and 9-vibe, because they're in the 3 vibration or the 4 vibration, and or the 4, you know, aspects, the half, the square, the opposition, etc. But I mean, I think that, you know, that's a bridge right there, you know, and that's what it got my wheels kind of turning. Like, you know, the people don't make that awareness that when we're talking about those things in the natal chart, we're talking about the vibrations, you know. It's just like looking at them from a little bit closer of a perspective. So that's exciting to me, because I hopefully, you know, these kinds of things, and the conversation the presentation, it sounds like you were listening to, Christopher, maybe it's like a little bit of a bridge is starting to happen between.
I think so. And I know that for the conference in Orlando, this is a theme. So when I was hearing that, this is a theme that we want to totally build upon.
Yes.
And so we would be in complete unison with these
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, because you deal with Uranus is discovered in what, 1787. Psychology first gets its, so Wilhelm Wooden founded the first psychological laboratory in 1879. It hasn't even been 200 years.
Wow.
1879.
Yeah.
So this idea and this concept has not been around for a long time. Psychological drives. This is new. And that's
Yes.
what we've got to remember while we sit in our world today where, yeah, we know the terms and we use them, but
Mhm.
we don't realize we're barely scratching the surface
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
understanding motivational drives.
Yes.
It's a new concept. That's a
Right.
new concept in astrology.
Yes.
Yeah, this is not like, oh, ancient astrology. No, it did not. It did not do that. You know, there's a very interesting story about the life of Abraham and how astrology got a bad name among the future Jewish nation, or is the nation of Israel. And that was because the astrologers came to Abraham and said he wasn't going to have any children. Okay. So Saturn, most likely Saturn in the seventh house, something, or not seventh, Saturn in the fifth house, probably for him, something like that was happening. And they read it as he's not going to have children. That's how they understood it, black and white. Okay. Now he goes to God, and God tells him he's going to have children, so many that they'll be more than the number of stars in the sky. Now, you don't think that's a flip off to the, not to astrologers, but to their interpretation. Okay.
Right.
So it gets a negative connotation amongst the Jewish nation because of the reference to Abraham. Okay. Again, not incorrect, just incorrect in interpretation. Now, did he have trouble having children? Yes, he did. Is that not a possibility of how we may read a Saturn in the fifth house in modern terminology? There could be issues. And there was.
There could
Okay.
be issues, but it doesn't mean that he will not have
Exactly.
any.
But in a black and white world, it did.
It's a no.
Mhm.
It's a no. And that's
yeah.
why the whole idea of Abraham having faith was that he believed that he could have a child, even though the astrologers told him no.
Mm.
Again, because they were living in a black. And this is the first encounter with the idea of faith, that which is beyond the black and white. Okay.
Right.
That which is coming from a spiritual, not a material source, because the material world said no, but the spirit world said yes. Okay. So that's one of the, again, you're dealing with what people think and why they think the way they think and what motivates them and what drives them. And to realize that, again, Uranus 1787, then 1879, psychology is just, it's just starting.
Just
You're
started.
just beginning. And I mean, again, we're not even at 200 years yet.
Yeah.
Right.
We're not at 200 years. So
Yeah, that is why this Cosmic Patterns Conference, which you can find the information at cosmicpatternsconference.com, is very, very powerful, because this is a convergence of so many astrological techniques all together. We have the tracks for vibrational astrology, financial astrology, Hellenistic, medieval, Vedic, you name it. So this is, I encourage everyone to attend this, because this is going to be a powerful conference. And you can see every astrological technique are linked together.
well, and I think one of the things that we'll be including, and there'll be more details of this in the future. We're going to get some of the speakers on and talk, but we'll talk about this a lot more, you know, as we continue to get closer. But one of the things at NORWAC was, I would say probably a good 50% of the people were considered astrological enthusiasts, students of astrology, but students where they are self-taught. I met a lot of self-taught students. Now, these are very sharp people that learn a lot, but oftentimes I was finding that there were sort of gaps, because again, when you're self-taught, it's not that you can't learn, but you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
And
you
lot of
don't
them
have the
do
word
not
for it,
have
like you just said.
computers. They're using
Right.
cell phones or apps or
Yeah, they're using different things, but they just don't. It's
they,
again, it's you don't know what you don't know.
right,
And when you have a teacher, you have someone oftentimes that'll point those things out, what you don't
guide
know.
you through. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Right.
so it's and as we've talked on here, of course, we've all had teachers.
Mm.
Yeah.
So and and Starlene's teaching. She has classes going on right now. There is something to that. And I realize a lot of people just feel they don't necessarily need that. I would tend to disagree. I wouldn't say you're 100% you don't need it. It's just a lot longer the other way. It's a lot
It is.
longer because you
It's
don't know
good
what
to
you
have a
don't know,
teacher. Yes.
and there are gaps oftentimes in learning.
Yeah.
And I was encountering that through some of the conversations that I would have with people. Again, sharp people, great, really very enthusiastic
Yeah.
about astrology, but little gaps that are just totally unaware that are some of them are very significant in sort of how you interpret. I find, for myself, being trained in hermeneutics, which is biblical interpretation. So in biblical interpretation, there are laws you have to follow, and there's several laws of how to interpret the Bible. Now, I will say this as well. In church, most people don't follow hermeneutics, which is like, yeah, you know how they do that. When you don't follow the rules, there are laws of how you understand information. And it's kind of important to do that. It's important to do that in a chart. Otherwise, you're going to miss major things.
All
You're
right.
going to miss contextual meaning. What do we mean by that? Well, if you take a Mars, so you have a Mars in Aries, okay? We're going to, oh man, that's that massively aggressive. Oh wow, Mars in Aries. We know that person's super aggressive. Let's stick it in the 12th house. Okay. So Mars in Aries, now we're sticking it in the 12th house. Okay. And we're putting a Pisces ascendant. Okay. So we're going to put a Pisces ascendant in the 12th house. And let's stick it with maybe the moon in Taurus or something like that. Okay. And then let's put the Venus in Pisces. Okay. So
Oh boy.
you negate a lot of that aggressiveness, in the other aspects, in what else is going on in the chart. You can't just, this means that.
Yeah.
Yes, but these other
Yeah.
things are going to, like, they're going, as we know. Okay. So it's like, okay, how do people read that? How do they understand that? You could have, we could also just put like Saturn up right directly conjunct that moon or something to that effect. It's like, we're really going to knock that thing down. That we can negate that aggressiveness really easily here. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's taking the whole chart all together,
Yeah.
let's also have the person born in a balsamic moon. Let's do that. Let's take these other things. And do you know what to look at, what to look for, and how to really read a chart instead of reading aspects? And a lot of times again, it's not to knock. We all have elements of self-taught. We've all done it. We all typically started off self-taught.
Right.
But you will typically hit a point where in order to advance, you're going to have to get under somebody and learn a system. And I was mentioning that to a few people there, that it's really important to learn at least one system, and then you can play off that one. But you kind of need to know and really be approved in one system, so that incorporate others, as we all do. We incorporate other systems,
Right, but
you
get
have to
solid on
master
one.
one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
and
because then the other ones, the other things are like additions to it. So, I was self-taught until going to Avalon, starting Avalon. I thought I knew a lot, but then I'm like, wow, you know, I didn't know as much as I thought. And I think that's normal because you think you know a lot, and then you do. But then when you start learning from someone who has gone through a rigorous training or whatnot, then you understand that there's so much more to learn. It's like, you know, an unfolding, if you will. There's nothing wrong with any of those spaces. But I mean, I even, you know, worked through the program. I started off with Kepler program back in the early 2000s that I got. And in the Kepler program and in the Sirius program, there's a thing called the Avalon lessons. And there's a whole series of lessons. And I did that multiple times before starting school and everything, reading books and just studying my own. But, you know, you just don't, until you can ask the questions and you know, really dig into something with a really get the full picture. You know, it's like, there's questions you can't ask the material. You can't ask the book or the program that you're reading.
You know, and that is one thing at conferences, no matter what, there's a lot of people to talk to, you know, and you can get exposed. You know, probably one of the biggest things at a conference is you're exposed to different things. Okay.
Yeah.
That you were not necessarily going to be exposed to online. You just won't, because you don't know what to look for. You typically go in certain circles. They feed you the rhythms. They feed that to you in your sort of searches, because they find what you're searching for, and they'll give you that, not beyond that, or not a different angle. And so at the conferences, you do meet a lot of people with, again, a lot of different thoughts. So you're going to hear, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Like I said, what Rick had to share, it's not like, so what it did for me is, and why I say it's really good, and why I say that one session made the whole thing worth it, because it ignites something inside of you that, oh, I didn't think of it like that, you know, like I didn't think of it like that. And that opens up a whole vista, like, okay, that makes sense. And it's really good then, you know. Again, there can be a lot of good speakers, but you just need maybe one or two little things that spark you. And that's kind of how I treat books, a conference, you know, anything like that, where you can learn something new that I didn't think of it that way. So
that's one good thing about an in-person conference. You can directly talk to the author or the speaker and ask questions, or people that know the subject within that area. You can directly talk to them and get the experience in person. It's really a wonderful thing. So encourage everyone to attend an in-person conference. It's so much fun, exciting, and you learn more than.
Well, yeah, and there's going to be a really great one in Orlando, so we all know that.
Yeah.
When is that going to be? When is that?
March 2025. Yeah, it's like,
Orlando,
and you know, who doesn't want to go to Florida in March? Come on.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's great weather. No, it'll be, but it was again neat to see it, neat to meet you know, just a bunch of the people there. And you know, you get again, you're around a bunch of astrology junkies of all different types, okay? And which is always interesting. Can I say that I saw a lot of people that were just like me? No. Okay, not necessarily. Well, I did. So I did run into one other
there's nobody like
white guy. I ran into one other white guy. That was he's younger than me, but not terribly much younger than me. And he was magic. That was his thing. And so we had a great talk, very educated in it, really good in that way, really sharp. So I learned stuff from him, you know. So you're not going to learn stuff just from the speakers.
Exactly.
You know, you're going to learn from the people that are there. They can point you to different, maybe some books you weren't aware of, or some podcasts, or some gatherings, and different things that you're just not aware of. And so, you know, again, really good talk to a lot of different people. it's funny. I talked to this one gal. She was older, very well dressed, you know, and talked to her. She had been a pastor's wife, you know, so we got to talking, and it was really good. Someone that her experiences, we could relate to each other's experiences. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And here she is, you know, and she's somewhere in her 60s, probably later 60s, maybe even early 70s. And she's just getting going in astrology. Okay.
Wow.
So this is like, she's like, I was interested when I was young, and then she went to church and into a pastor's wife, and, you know, got away from that. But she goes, well, now I'm getting back to it. So, and very sharp, really good, really sharp. You know, she's very detail oriented. I talked to a lot of Virgos, so a lot of Virgos.
Well, they say when you get older, you should keep your mind active, and astrology can definitely do that for you. So, you know, keep your mind active. You know,
are just starting into astrology. A lot of
even
women.
Yep.
Are just starting.
Yes, I noticed that.
Just the young ones.
Right.
Oh, yes. Now, women are all over the place. That's not the problem.
Not very many men.
Well, not very many non-gay men. Okay. So if men were looking for a place to date or find somebody, that would not be the wrong place to go. So, yeah. So
wow.
There's a lot of gals, again, really sharp, met several from all over the place. One gal I met, she had a healing center that sounded very interesting just up north here. So it's like, oh, okay. She was telling me that if my wife and I were interested or anything. So I got that information, but it looked, you know, again, you'll just meet different people on doing different things
different capacities here.
Absolutely. And you know, it's really good that way. So also, and this better not happen in Orlando, I went to the gals behind the counter at the hotel. Okay. And I asked them, has anybody asked your birthday? And the answer, no. Had anybody talked to them about their sign or anything astrology? No.
You already started giving them reading in Orlando.
Of course.
They are all friends now.
Of course I did. How am I not going to do that? You have an astrology conference and you have no one sharing with them about them? Or ridiculous. Okay. I don't like that. Like, I don't like how people don't engage people, just engage them. Like, here we are as astrologers. I mean, we do not have a lot of evangelist astrologers. I will tell you that evangelism does not exist in astrology very much. All right. So the idea of going out and talking about and just sharing what we know, I think it's a treasure what we know. And I think that we can always lighten and brighten someone's day by talking about who they are and describing aspects within them that everybody doesn't always readily see. And just going and saying, in a sense, it's like saying, I see you. I see you.
Yeah.
That's what it's saying.
Astrology accepted, not avoided.
Exactly. Give them real. No, I didn't know astrology did that. I didn't know it could do that. Oh, I didn't know that.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So I went and I was sharing with
in Orlando because you already did the reading on so many.
I know. I know. But it's like I went to the coffee gal. I was talking to her. Then I went to the desk and I'm like, let me see. So I talked to one. And when I'm talking to one, you think the others are ignoring it? No, they're looking right in. And what are they doing? What about me? Like, okay, that's what they want. That's what they want. Do me, do me, do me. Okay. So I went right down the line. All of them are smiling. All of them are good. So I want to encourage those that are listening to this and other astrologers, engage people. They like it. Don't say anything bad. Okay,
Don't
don't
be
say
shy.
anything.
Don't avoid it.
No
Don't be shy.
benefics. They don't exist when you're talking to somebody like that.
No, that's too much to handle in a small conversation anyway. You want to.
Oh, believe you me. Oh, I got into it with, the gal. Oh my God. So the trip home.
We missed our lunch with the staff because he was doing astrology.
So the on the trip home, sat next to a gal, like 4.5 hour trip. Okay. So I'm there and she's like, oh, hi. We introduce ourselves to each other. It's like 3 seats and there's nobody in between us. Okay. So she's at the window. I'm at the aisle. Nobody there. So we start going. I'm like, okay, before we've taken off, so I can run her chart real quick. So I get her info. I run her chart real quick. So I start looking at it, start talking. Oh my Lord. 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours. Yeah, the whole way. Now, mind you, it made the trip go extremely fast. So I'm really thankful because
I was wondering what made it so fast for you. It was 4 hours.
4.5 hours. But when I'm doing a reading, everything moves really quick.
Yeah.
So it's like going fast.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were so all over. It's so fascinating how things work. Because I had a situation where there had been a transit in a young girl's life. And during the transit, it was a Venus-Uranus onto her Venus.
Oh, yeah.
And
onto her Venus?
Venus-Uranus transiting her Venus.
Wow.
Okay.
Her natal Venus. And she tells her folks she's bringing a girlfriend home. Okay. Now that's brand new. Okay. Okay. Now, the mother is like, well, I'm not opposed to this, but I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I look at the chart, realizing that within a month, the transit will pass. Okay. So this is a thing. You've been burned in a past relationship. This has happened. Strong desire for a relationship. You're okay with a unique relationship. It's spontaneous. But it's going to pass. Okay. Within a month. I happen to describe this as this girl's talking about it. I happen to describe the transit. She gives me a look. The look of, I want to say something, but I don't know if I should say something. So I look at her chart. Guess what she had gone through? The same transit. And guess what she was now doing and considering that as her future.
Oh.
Wow.
Not in her chart, but in her chart, but a transit. And she knew it. She knew it. So I won't tell a person directly, hey, no, like you need to tell me. I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you questions and get you to the,
right.
like, can we draw it out of you?
Yeah.
So, and which she proceeds to talk about how she had been at a baseball game just the day before. And she told her friend that the pitcher was going to be her husband. It's like, okay, do you hear yourself? Like you're like in a relationship, and now this one's gonna this guy. You're in a relationship with a girl, but this guy's gonna be your like. What are you doing here? Of which she's like, oh my god, oh my god. So we had a lot of oh my god moments during that whole trip. Pretty much the entire trip was oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. But it's really good. It was a good time. Again, it's just interesting to be able to talk to people, and you're not wanting to tell them what to do. That's not what it's about. Having a conversation that you typically can't have with people because they're going to be very binary. This or that. This or like, no, it's wait a minute. Okay, who are you? Let's discover who you are. Inside some of these things. But let's discover more about these points and what you're doing and what you're saying and what you're communicating and what you're like, where you're searching for it. And you kind of know what you really want, But for some reason, you keep walking down these other paths, you know, that you don't want, because you're a lot of times avoidance, fear, all these kind of issues. But let's name them. Let's name them, you know, because if we can name them, we can understand them. And then we can begin to look at what I want to do. Do I want to do this, or do I want to do that? If you can name it, you can choose. If you can't name it, you're typically captured by it. And then, you know, you're walking down things that you don't necessarily want to walk down. So again, really good conversation. Got to the airport at Charlotte, had lunch, and had a whole nother conversation with a teacher who was a Gemini. So I went down their line, got in line to the plane, had another conversation with a guy who was Virgo, who was this. So we went down. But you can engage, as you know, you can engage astrology literally anywhere, you know.
Yeah.
And I just don't meet people who don't enjoy it. Like,
right, exactly. I'm going to start doing what you're doing. I'm about to leave again this Saturday in an airplane, so I'm going to start the conversation.
Do it. Like my first question is, what's your birthday? I never have anybody not tell me what their birthday is.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
oh, really? Birthday?
Oh, everybody knows their zodiac signs.
Well, I don't ask zodiac signs. I ask birthday.
Yeah.
If I ask the zodiac sign, some people might hesitate.
They already know their zodiac signs.
But see, if I ask their zodiac sign, they may hesitate.
Or they'll just be like, I don't believe in that.
I don't want to do that.
Right.
I ask their birthday.
But if you ask their birthday,
they always will give me their birthday.
Right.
And then I go into something about them. I don't even necessarily say their zodiac sign. I'll just go into something about them. Because you go into something about them that is positive, that is uniquely them and positive.
That's
and then
a good way to expose
they smile
astrology to be accepted. Yeah. Make it open. Make it an open book.
Absolutely.
I found, I mean, this is before COVID, when I would go out and talk to people and tell them I'm an astrologer. A lot of times they give me their palm. And you said, I was telling you that, and you were like, no, explain to them what it is. And I'm like, I know, it's just funny that they do it, but they don't know. But explaining to them, but that's a better way to do it, Christopher. Like, what's your birthday? So then they're not going, hey, this is it.
No, they'll give me, oh, what's your birthday? I'll get it was last week. I'm like, oh, happy birthday, you know, and then we'll go right into it. I'm like, okay, where are we? Okay, we're here last week. Okay, you know, and then boom, let's go. You know,
there were so many people there in NORWAC that just had their birthday last week, or even the same day, or one day before that they spent somewhere. And then I looked at the solar return where they spent their birthday, and I gave them the interpretation, and I asked them, okay, what happened there? I mean, oh my God, how did you know that that's what happened? It's so accurate. It's extremely accurate.
Yeah.
So solar return relocated to where you spent your birthday is really, really very powerful.
Yeah.
And astrologers will like that. I mean, they'll, you know, no matter what, people want to hear what's happening inside them. They just do, you know, like it's just human nature. You know, there's a thing for me that, because like after I'm done with this 360, I begin the second book, which I talked a lot about on the trip. And the second book is The Gods We Serve. So which is the book I really want to write. And so, you know, I was actually, you know, testing out a lot of the material on the trip, which it was very well received. It was even more than the 360 because they could immediately identify with this one.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so in The Gods We Serve, you know, it really goes to the first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me, is kind of what it goes to. And the idea where it doesn't say don't have other gods. It says don't have other gods before me. The me being the eternal you, the divine self, as it were, God, you know, whatever a person wants to title it. But there's an eternal part within every human being. And we know that because as we age, that doesn't age. That part in you that does not age, that part in you that's just the same as it's always been, that eternal part. And yet we live in a body. And we live in a body.
That ages, right?
That ages. And that body is what the astrology chart defines. It's what we're dealing with. You know, so the body the body. So like I would tell people, you think your thoughts are yours? That's Mercury, baby. So
Yeah.
where's your Mercury?
Really fun.
What's happening with your Mercury? This is what you're having to deal with. Okay. You think those emotions are yours? You think they're yours? They are not. That's the moon, you know, that's what the moon's going through, or that's what your Neptune, your dreaming is going through. That's what these other things are. This is what you're learning how to navigate. And so when someone can come up and begin to describe what you're having to deal with, not you.
That
I
would
cannot
be a
describe
very
you.
powerful book, Chris, especially for those people that has a very strong moon Neptune aspects in their chart.
Yeah.
They would think that that emotion they're feeling is theirs.
Yes.
But it's really not. If they look around, feel around, ask questions, it's really not them.
Well, why do you think we come up with the term all the time? Why did I say that? Why did I do that? Why did I?
Right.
Exactly. Because you didn't.
You're
but you dwell in a body that does, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why, like from a biblical perspective, it says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of the air. Okay. So we wrestle not against the material, in a sense, that which we can see. We wrestle with stuff that's inside of us, you know, and the whole concept of Jacob to Israel was he wrestled with the angel. He wrestled with the messenger of the gods and prevailed. And that's what we have as astrologers can point out. We can deal with the angels, with the messengers of the gods that you're wrestling with, you know, that you're having to deal with, and putting words to them, giving understanding to them. It's for me what we do. And, you know, you want to separate yourself from the chart in the sense of, I'm not talking about you. All right. So I can look at Starlene's chart and see how screwed up all her gods are and say, this isn't you, Starlene. This is what you're dealing with.
That's funny.
But
most of my planets go back to Saturn, so this would be why.
Right. Or like you're dealing with Satan constantly. Okay. So
yeah, it's just like he's
your analysis of her being an ex-murderer is really not her.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
It's the gods she's dealing with. Exactly, Fei. Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's the funniest.
I was trying to live that one down.
So, but it's really, we all know that as a reality, that this is what I'm having to deal with. And so
in the physical manifestation of the material realm in that moment.
Yeah. And that's why when Saturn became the limitation, it was limiting that sort of connection to the divine self, to the eternal self. That's why the Uranus, which is reconnecting that, becomes so significant. That's why with what Rick was sharing, it's like, okay, and we're calling it quantum now. We're having different words for it.
Right.
But we're trying
it is
to
a different thing. Yeah.
Yes.
And I like that because I mean we've differentiated vibrational astrology years ago from just astrology, and not that it's any better, it's just a different manifestation of the astrology from the past. And so I like the idea of that. I'm looking forward to hearing Rick speak at Cosmic Pattersn Conference. Like that'll be exciting. I can't remember what his topic is, but that is
did you see the description there? It's really awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go read it, but we'll definitely leave links.
Well, he's very sharp. Like, so
I've met him before. Just
you kind of get the idea. If I tell you he's sharp, he's like sharp. He's not he's not like, oh, he's okay. No, he's really
he's great.
Good. Yeah, he knows.
I look forward to. I mean, we have a lot of great astrologers that are going to be at the Cosmic Pattersn Conference.
Definitely.
So awesome.
It's going to be don't miss it.
Don't miss it. Yeah. It's going to be awesome.
Well, and that's the beauty. There'll be a lot of astrologers there speaking, but you know they'll be able to talk and just be a part. You know, because that's a big part of the theme we wanted to have in this particular conference is we want to have engagement with people, you know, and also some, and I think we will be able to have stuff for, you know, sort of that student base that they'll be clear, like like if you take this is for the sort of the ones who have not been through a traditional sort of education, but have self-educated, where they can get more hands-on kind of experience and stuff.
Yes.
So that'll
Yes,
be
I'm
really
looking
good.
forward to doing a VA workshop
Yeah.
there for the conference. So like we'll
Definitely.
have that, and then
Well,
other
just-
astrologers doing other. Yep,
Right.
it'll be great.
You will,
I'm really looking forward to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
astrologers from all over the world that are experienced astrologers that you can learn from.
Yes,
And
Yeah.
yeah. I
vibration
always love.
astrology was you can link together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I always love meeting new astrologers with other thought processes and seeing how
Yep.
they got to where they're
Yeah.
at, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is exciting. Well, thanks for sharing all the information and your experience about NORWAC. I'm glad you guys were able to experience it. Maybe I'll get myself up there one year. But yeah, I think this was a fun conversation. I hope everybody that stuck with us enjoyed listening to it. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yes.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.